Hey there guys, Mike here again. Thanks for clicking this video. Welcome to my shop. If you're new to my channel, I like to collect, restore, and of course repair vintage Coleman lanterns. Since I have a lot of machine tools, I'm able to fabricate my own tools to help me repair those lanterns. So here I have a 220 font, which I cut in half here, and we're going to talk about making a tool or a new tool to help purge this air tube. So what happens at times, fuel can get caught in here in case the lantern was put on its side and a full fuel could get into this tube, and if it sits and hardens, you can no longer pump air into the font. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a new tool that I created that will help push the remnants or debris out of that tube. So before I discuss the tool that I made and how I made it, let's go backtrack a bit on what the issue is. So this is the pump tube here, and inside the pump tube is the actual pump mechanism. So it has a hollow rod that you put your thumb over the hole here, and then it has a rubber cup or a leather cup like this one here, and that fits in there and allows you to put air into the tank. And inside this socket here is a check valve, and it sits right at the bottom here, and there's a little ball in here, and if it's working properly it allows air to go in but doesn't allow air to go out. So what happens is over time, if the tank has been stored on the side and it's full of fuel, and then you tip it back up again and store it, crud could build up in there and the fuel could actually solidify and build up there. And no matter how much pressure you try to put with this and try to pump it up, you just can't create enough pressure to purge that or knock anything out of that. So what I did previously is I made a tool like this, and what you would do is you remove the check valve, fill it up with some mineral spirits, put this in to part, and then you would ram it, and that would use hydraulic pressure to push out the crud that's actually in this tube. So that method works pretty good, but it is kind of messy because you have all this fluid that you need to get rid of now. And the other issue is that not all pump tubes have the same diameter. They're not all the same. So if I make one to fit this, it may not fit a 200 or a 242. So I went ahead and created a different version. So this one has two different size heads, and you could put it in. There's that side there, and you put it in and it would work the same way. And this is actually less material and a little bit easier to make, and making it more useful. Again, the issue is there's more than 2 or 3 different sizes of pump tubes, and it is kind of messy. So I came up with a different method. So my new version of the tool seems to work just as good. Since I can make check valve tools using the special die, so this is a 1/4 by 32 die, and that is the same thread pitch as a check valve. So what you can do here is, you don't even have to remove this from the font. You could have that in the font. You reach down and screw that into the font like that, and then you can take an air compressor and hook it on, and with the dial on the air compressor you can purge it out. Now you want to make sure that everything is open so the air can escape. Most air compressors can go up to about 120, 140 psi, no problem. And so that should be enough pressure to purge out this tube here. So that got me thinking that a lot of you guys don't have air compressors. So what I decided, well, I could probably do one with a high pressure bike pump. So this is known as a pressure valve, and this is on a lot of higher end mountain bikes and road bikes, and these pumps can get up to 120, 130 psi. You can see by the dial here that it actually will go up to 140, 160 psi. I've never had this pump up to this. 120 is usually what I have. So basically, if you have a really high-end bike pump, you can use this tool as well. So I'll show you how this works here. I have the high pressure bike pump all hooked up to the tool. I have the tool screwed into the check valve in here. So the check valve is in here, and I'm going to simulate an obstruction by just plugging that. And then we'll give it a really good pump, and I can get up to 60 psi, no problem, just with one hand. I highly doubt you can get 60 psi out of that. Now, if you give it really quickly, I could see easily getting this up to 80 or 100 psi, no problem, just with a bike pump. And that should be more than enough pressure to blow anything out of that tube. So to make this even more adaptable, we know that newer Colemans have a different style check valve. So this is smaller, and these are 8 by 32. So I went ahead and fabricated another tip here, 8 by 32, so that will screw right into the newer ones, and it'll work exactly the same. So the neat thing about this is it is adaptable, so these will unscrew. So it's kind of modular. So those two have the same threads that screws into there, and then they have the different threads for the different check valves. So we have the older standards type with the 1/4 by 32, and then you have the new modern ones which are 8 by 32. And then if you just had air compressor, you could just use a tool with the 2 tips. If you don't have an air compressor, you can just build this one here. And this is the Presta valve, and you can just go out and buy a bike pump, which is a lot cheaper than an air compressor, and it gives you the options to do all that. Another option, which I haven't constructed yet, would be doing the same thing, but putting a grease fitting on the end. So we all know that grease guns can get up to 4,000 to 5,000 psi, and that's more than enough pressure to pump that out. And actually, the grease gun could probably even remove some creases, some dents from the fount as well. So I won't bore you guys with a bunch of machining footage. Some of you guys who plan to make this device already will probably already know how to do a lot of these processes. But what I will do is I'll break down all the parts and pieces and all the tooling I use to make my tool, and I'll also put a link in the description below for a set of plans so you can download for free and you could try to build this for yourself. So I have all the material and tooling all laid out here. So it's 5/8 aluminum round for the main body. We cut that down to 4.5 inches. If we're going to use the air compressor fitting, we need to drill and tap that. So you need to get an air compressor fitting. There's a type A fitting. This is a 1/4 inch by 18 MPT. You need to get a special tap for that. It's a pipe tap, it's tapered, and the corresponding drill bit with that is 7/16. If you go with the Presta fitting, you will need to get a Presta air valve. All I did was cut this off from an old bike inner tube tire. Now the thread pitch for this is very uncommon. It is M6 by 0.75. For the other side, so for the tip side, I went with 1/4 inch National Fine 28 TPI. So I got a drill, die, and tap set for that. That comes with a number 3 drill bit, so you need that so you could build the tip side so they both screw in together. For the tips, I went with 1/4 inch brass stock, and I also bought some brass nuts here, and those will be fine thread as well, 1/4 inch 28. If you can't find any of that, of course you can re-tap them out with that set. So for the tips here, we use that die, so it's 1/4 inch by 28 National Fine, and that screws in perfectly to this side there. So that works together really good. And then we have the jam nuts here that will lock that into place. For this end, this is the same as the normal air stem, and so that is a 1/4 by 32, and that's the same die I used to make my check valve removal tools. For the other version size, this is 8 by 32, so what I ended up doing was getting just a brass machine screw. So this is 8 by 32 brass machine screw. I take a drill and tap set there. So this is 8 by 32. I drill and tap that, I screw that in, and then with a 1/16 drill bit, we will drill that out while it's mounted in that. So for assembly, if you're going to be using the pipe thread here, we should use some silicone tape and screw that all together like that. Make it all nice as airtight as possible. For this tip thing, I believe that the longer the better, so you get a better seal of that. So we can screw that in like that. And like I say, that's interchangeable, and with the jam nut you can lock that in place really tight. And as for the Presta valve, I would recommend using some Loctite. Really goop that up really good so you create a really nice thread fit there. And I also put a little O-ring washer in there as well to make that all seal nicely. So obviously the best way to make this tool would be on a lathe. This is my benchtop lathe here. Nothing fancy, it's just a single horsepower one-phase machine. I've had it for many years now, and it does the trick and keeps on ticking. Now, a lot of you guys don't have lathes, but I think you could probably get by using a drill press. So this is my General International 3/4 horse drill press, a fairly decent size. As I mounted the round stock in this parallel fixture, so this keeps it perfectly in line with the chuck, and you'll be able to do a through bore on that with the appropriate size drill bits, and you can hand tap everything that you need to do. So if you guys do plan to make this and you have a lathe, I'll show you one hack that I had to develop. This is a tapered tap, and it's very difficult to get to start straight because you need this to be perfectly straight in there, or else it won't thread properly. So what I ended up doing was making a tap holder, so that will hold it perfectly in there, and that is the same size as my chuck. This is bigger than will fit in the chuck, so I had to make a separate adapter and holder for that. So what you do is you turn it on the slowest setting, you lube this up as possible, turn it on, plunge it a couple threads, and then you can loosen it off and you can finish it by hand. This tap is a lot of effort for my lathe to tap, so I want to make sure that I can do it by feel and I won't end up breaking that. So I hope you found this video informative, and you do plan to make something like this. I'd like to know how you make out. If you have any more questions, concerns regarding these tools, please leave a comment below and I'll answer them. Once again, I will put a link in the description below of all the parts and the tooling that I've used, and I'll also link a build document so you can download for free and you can follow along and build something like this. If you like this type of material, please like and subscribe. I do plan to make more Coleman content. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.